Young Singaporeans should see uncertainty not as something to fear, but as a chance to build new paths. As global competition reshapes careers, Jeffrey Siow says youths must be bold enough to move beyond conventional routes and seize opportunities in emerging industries. CNA's Claudia and Beatrice speak to the co-chair of the ESR Committee on Global Competitiveness.
The world is becoming more fragmented and protectionist. So would you say is Singapore's economic model still fit for the future?
The characteristics that have propelled Singapore's success over the last couple of decades, whether it's trustedness, connectivity, openness to talent and capital, all these remain relevant in the new world where it's more volatile and more uncertain. If I can extend a maritime analogy, the ESR is essentially a refitting of our economy. We are adding new growth engines. We are retraining the workers that are on our ship. We are reinforcing our hull for greater resilience. And if we are able to do this right, we'll be able to plot a new course to safer waters. I guess this approach has been what we have been doing all these years. Singapore's approach has never been to wish for better weather. It's always been to build the best ship that we can build so that we can sail in it and continue to get to where we want to go successfully.
Moving on to regional economies, right? They are becoming more aggressive in attracting investment. So where exactly is Singapore feeling that pressure? Is it cost? Is it talent?
Regional economies are both competing with us, but they're also complementary to us. We've always been competing, first of all, in the world with other cities. We've always been competing based on quality. We want to build on our strengths to do more. We also want to try to make investments in new industries, new emerging technologies. The ESR report mentions a few. It mentions space and quantum technology as two of the areas we're thinking of going into. And these are adjacent technologies to sectors we are already in. For example, quantum computing is very much adjacent to the semiconductor industry. And space is not just a hop, skip, and jump away from aerospace. We think we have the ability to win the right to play in these industries, even though today we don't have the right to win. Fundamentally, our objective is not just about growing the economy or investing in technology. That's not the purpose in and of itself. The objective is always to create good jobs for Singaporeans. That is always the end point of what we are doing. We do not grow the economy for its own sake. We do not invest in technology for its own sake. We do it so that we create good jobs for Singaporeans both today and also for the Singaporeans of tomorrow.
During the ESR announcement, we heard a lot of making bold bets. We heard this phrase quite a bit. So making bold bets also carry the risk of failure. So how much room does Singapore actually have to fail, to test and try?
Singapore's history is littered with examples of bold bets that have succeeded. I think we should be confident. The industries that we talk about today that generate good jobs, finance, pharmaceutical, semiconductors, these were the bold bets of yesterday. There's no intrinsic reason why Singapore should be a pharmaceutical or finance hub. But we were because we make a deliberate decision to say these are the industries we want to go in, and we built the ecosystem around it. I mentioned quantum computing, I mentioned space. These are calculated bets because we can see that these are adjacent technologies to what we already have in Singapore in terms of strong economic sectors. And we think we have a reasonable chance to be able to win the right to play. And so we are going to that. Of course, not all bets will succeed. That's the nature of it. But I think we are confident that these are investments that are worth making.
What would make the government stop backing a certain bet?
Well, I think we have to be agile and nimble in making these decisions. There are evolutions and developments that you can see, and then you have to make an assessment of whether or not you want to continue to work on these areas. So, for example, a few years back, maybe 5-6 years back, coding was all the rage. We were, telling our kids, go and take some coding classes, make sure that you know how to do programming. With AI, that part has disappeared. Was it a wrong bet? Well, I think you can, on hindsight, say it was a wrong bet. Was it useful for us to have gone into the sector and understood how coding evolved and to be involved in the companies that were also investing in these areas? I think there were benefits in doing so. And it is not always the case where you make a decision and then it goes horribly wrong and then you have to pivot. But it's more the case of having the ability to pivot and adjust and to be agile in shifting your resources when you realize that things are not going in the right direction. Yeah. So I think we are confident that we are able to do this. Singapore, after all, is a small country. We are not a particularly large population. So the ability for us to make quick changes and decisions is an advantage for us. And we should lean into it and make sure that we have the agility to respond if needed.
In coming out with these recommendations, right, what were some of the hardest trade-offs that the committee had to balance?
There were many. Trade-offs are inevitable when you are trying to make transitions. For instance, we just talked about AI and we want to move as fast as possible on AI, but we also have to be conscious that we want to have sufficient guardrails to not make sure we go out of bounds and get into problems. Another tension I think that will invariably come up is really making sure that the people who know how to operate AI, the benefits accrue also to the people who are a little bit behind. How do you help them catch up and they don't fall too far behind? So there are many. A third possible tension that I can think of is how you balance efficiency with resilience. If there are problems that happen, you're able to adjust quickly. Singapore has always been a place where we have always managed trade-offs.
If you could say something to a young Singaporean in, say, 2040 about the country they inherited, what do you think it will be?
Well, this question is a personal one to me. I have two children. I have a 16-year-old son and a 14-year-old girl. And they are going to enter the workforce in a way that's very different from me. I want to get young Singaporeans to feel that you don't have to fear. Actually, the world is full of opportunities now and you have a strong base to work on. Just go off and try. Yeah. We have longed for this for a long time. I have longed for having a place where, please don't stick to the tried and tested path. And as a young person, if you're just following a tried and tested path, at the end of the day, what will you have achieved? You just have walked the road that others have walked. But why not we just walk a new road for ourselves? I think that is the measure of the man,